first thing he tasted wasn't fear. It was copper, thick and metallic, coating his tongue. Then came the smell ozone, like the air after a lightning strike, mixed with something sweetly rotten. His hands trembled against the cold, damp metal of the containment door, its surface slick with an unidentifiable residue. From beyond the threshold, a low, guttural vibration hummed through the floor, making his teeth ache. Every instinct screamed to run, but his legs felt rooted, heavy with a dread that was older than reason. This was Protocol Echo, the final, unthinkable directive. To swallow the catastrophe before it could swallow the world. And in the suffocating quiet that followed the initial roar, he knew the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting to consume the very machine that shattered his world. This isn't a tale of survival, but of a man in the Alaskan void, forced to make the wreckage that tried to kill him part of his own flesh. For 47 days, Michael Thorne's broken reality became his sustenance, his shelter, and his cage. Michael Thorne was an architect, a man who constructed realities from clean lines and solid foundations. His world was one of predictable schedules and orderly blueprints, a carefully built life with his family. But beneath that veneer of control, the air in their Portland home sometimes carried a faint, metallic scent, like cold iron after rain. It was a detail Michael's logical mind filed away, a minor flaw in an otherwise perfect design. His greatest danger had been a weekend hike on an overly ambitious trail. But in the autumn of 2018, a sudden business trip emerged. A remote site near Juneau, Alaska. They promised a short charter flight. They called it routine. The Cessna's single engine hummed as pilot Ben, a local with weathered eyes, guided them skyward. Michael offered a tense thumbs up to the camera, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. The weather was shifting. A familiar seasonal turn, but one that brought a damp chill seeping through the cabin walls. As they ascended over the immense, primordial expanse of the Tongass, Michael sent Sarah a final text. The photo captured nothing but the silent, consuming wilderness below, a vastness that felt less like scenery and more like a waiting maw. The unsent message read, "Looks like the edge of the world. Home tomorrow. Love you." He never transmitted it. Then, the plane's engine began to sputter, a wet, choking sound that clawed at the silence. The air in the cabin grew thick, with the metallic scent of ozone and cold dread. The alarm's shriek died abruptly as the hook's impact echoed through the fuselage. Then, nothing but the howl of Arctic wind through twisted aluminum ribs. The metallic scent of ruptured fuel lines mixed with the ozone of electrical shorts. A deep, resonant groan emanated from the aircraft's spine as it settled into its frozen grave. The crash was a violent cacophony of tearing metal and shattering glass. When the world finally settled, Michael dangled inverted in his seatbelt, the harness biting into his shoulder. Ben was simply gone, vanished from the co-pilot's seat. The entire cockpit had been hammered into a deep snowdrift, buried in a remote valley, invisible to any search from above. Howling wind answered Michael's pained groans. His body was a map of torment, a shattered leg, ribs like fractured ice, a skull ringing with concussion, yet he clung to life, breath steaming in the frigid air. For 3 days, hope and melted snow were his only sustenance. He thumbed the emergency beacon, but the plastic housing was crushed, its red light extinguished. His phone was worse. A shattered screen flickered once, then went black, offering no glow. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like rust. Every connection to the outside world had been severed, leaving him utterly alone. The plane's radio was a gutted mess, wires spilling out like frozen intestines. The survival kit lay eviscerated, its supplies swallowed by the deepening snowdrift. The cold wasn't just air. It was a ravenous entity, chewing through his insulation with crystalline teeth. Each breath came in ragged hitches, the air tasting of iron and impending oblivion. On the 4th day, delirious with hunger, his gaze fell on the seat beside him. Not the seat itself, but the torn foam padding spilling from the fabric. A metallic scent of ozone and old sweat hung thick in the air as he stared at the exposed foam. His numb fingers twitched, brushing against the cold, synthetic material. A primal dread took hold as he understood what his starvation demanded. It resembled bread, a pallid, unnatural loaf. His gut twisted in visceral protest. Pain and solitude had fractured his mind. Now, it began to twist logic itself into a brutal, desperate survival instinct. The first bite of the seat foam was a profound psychological violation, a desperate crossing of a final line. A voice, not his own, slithered through his mind. It's not the plane anymore, it's food. The sound of tearing fabric and the wet squeaker rip of foam filled the heavy, metallic air. He retched, his body revolting, then forced himself to chew with grim, mechanical determination. The liquid was bitter, chemical, coating his throat with a toxic burn. He retched violently, body spasming as it tried to expel the poison, but the emptiness in his gut returned, sharper now, a gnawing void that overrode all reason. Trembling hands reached again for the source, driven by a hunger that felt less human by the second. He started with the soft things. The foam seat padding came first, then the leather from the headrest. He boiled the leather in melted snow, creating a gruesome broth. Finally, he chewed the insulation strips from the walls for hours, reducing them to a desperate paste. As Michael's body consumed the cabin, his mind began to mirror the wreckage. He named the parts of his meals, whispering each label to the rust-stained air. The metallic scent of his own blood mixed with the cabin's decaying polymers. Each whispered name felt like carving another piece of himself away. He called the vinyl sealant, window garnish, and the shredded electrical wiring stripped of copper wing noodles. He'd whisper to the derelict plane as he worked, his voice a raspy murmur in the stale, ozone-tinged air. "You gave me this," he'd muttered, each word thick with a strange, possessive reverence, the sound swallowed by the vast, hollow silence around him. The rhythmic scrape of the saw against plastic was the only reply, a lonely sound in the echoing metal tomb. "Now you are me." A distant helicopter thrummed, then faded into the heavy air. Michael stood emaciated beside the wreckage, too weak to raise a hand. He heard planes, saw helicopters, visions that dissolved into the ozone-scented silence. The crash site's white-on-white camouflage concealed him completely. Whenever hope began to dissolve, he'd retreat back to the fuselage, his grotesque larder. His body was processing industrial adhesives, petroleum-based plastics, and synthetic polymer. He was slowly poisoning himself just to survive. His gut was in constant, crippling pain. But he was here. The turning point came when he approached the control panel. His fingers brushed the cold, smooth plexiglass cover. A faint scent of ozone and decay seeped from the machinery, freezing him in place. He had avoided it, a final taboo. But on day 39, staring into the true void, he shattered a small gauge cover. For hours, he ground the shards against a cold, rough stone, creating a coarse, glittering powder that caught the faint light. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and cold metal as he mixed the powder with fresh snow, stirring slowly. Then, with a final, shuddering breath, he lifted the bowl to his lips and consumed the frigid, crystalline paste. But this was no longer mere consumption. He was devouring the aircraft's very perception, ingesting the sky through which it once soared. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and the metallic tang of something ancient and wrong. Then, a sudden, violent roar of rotor blades shattered the oppressive atmosphere. On day 47, a survey helicopter on a different route spotted an anomalous glint, a piece of torn metal he positioned on a tree. They found a man, barely human in appearance, curled in the belly of a plane that was hollowed out. The aircraft's interior had been eaten from the inside, the air thick with the scent of cold iron and old rock. A rescue team in orange suits moved through the snow, their shock palpable as they beheld the scene. When the rescuers arrived, they were confronted with a tableau of incomprehensible horror. Michael Thorne was immediately evacuated to an Anchorage hospital, a gaunt figure in the sterile chaos. Now, he lay in a pristine room, his body reduced to a skeletal frame. The air carried the sterile scent of antiseptic, undercut by a faint, unsettling odor of decay. He stared not at the sky, but at the cold aluminum frame of the window. The physical recovery was a medical nightmare, his digestive system scarred and filled with foreign, inert matter. The psychological recovery, that was the true unknown, a void no doctor could map. Sarah visited, her heart breaking at the hollow, unrecognizable man her husband had become. One night, she brought him a Jell-O cup. He studied it, then fixed his hollow gaze on her. His whisper carried the scent of antiseptic and decay. "Michael, the red ones. The red ones taste like the seat fabric. The emergency light casings. They aren't looking at the camera, but it's something within the room. Something only he perceives." Michael Thorne survived. He returned to his family, to his life of clean lines and solid foundations. But he left something in that valley, and he brought something back. The surgeons carved the wreckage from his flesh. But how do you excise it from the mind? His world is no longer one of objects, but of potential, nourishment. To him, a bench is not wood and iron. It's a meal, waiting. The family car has become a reservoir of calories, sealed in plastic and foam. A faint, ghostly echo of shearing metal whispers on the wind, a memory of the impact that refuses to fade. So I leave you with this question, a question that haunts Michael with every bite, every embrace, every glance upward. When you are forced to consume your own tomb, to avoid becoming part of it, at what point do you stop being the survivor and start becoming the crash?